Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the Urban Institute webinar, Leveraging Veterans Talent in Registered Apprenticeship. The interest on this topic has been tremendous, and we're delighted to have so many attendees on this webinar who are tuning in to learn more about apprenticeship and how to better connect to veteran talent. We have a great program for you today. We'll start by previewing a new web-based tool our team at Urban has produced to facilitate veteran participation in registered apprenticeship. Then we'll have a panel with experts on the topic who will discuss these issues and answer your questions. Next slide. First up, for housekeeping, the event is being recorded and the recording will be posted online afterward. Speaker biographies are available online. Hide captions or adjust settings with the live transcript button. All participants right now are muted. And if you have questions for us, feel free to type your questions or comments into the Q&A box at any time. Great. So just a little bit of introduction before we go ahead with our terrific programming today. My name is Diana Elliott, and I direct Urban Institute's Apprenticeship Expansion and Modernization Fund, or AEMF project, which focuses on expanding apprenticeships in tech occupations. For those of you who don't know the Urban Institute, we're a nonprofit research organization based in Washington, D.C., that elevates evidence in policy conversations and decision-making. We have a large team and a growing body of work focused on advancing registered apprenticeship in policy and practice. Urban's AEMF project is funded by the U.S. Department of Labor and started in June of 2019 and continues until June of 2022. Our vision for this project is to expand registered apprenticeship opportunities with employers of tech occupations across various sectors. In this capacity, we engage with employers to raise awareness about registered apprenticeship and explore its fit for their needs. We provide free technical assistance to develop and register new programs. We also provide monetary incentives that offset some of employers' costs in training and mentoring apprentices. The goal overall is to sign over 1,700 new apprentices by the end of June 2022 in tech occupations by working with at least 30 employers and supporting the start of 20 new programs. In our conversations with employers, we have noted considerable interest from employers to hire veteran talent, but there are a lot of questions about how and where to begin. We saw a role for Urban to make the process clearer and to bring together experts today to answer those questions. So right now, my Urban Institute colleague, Matt Eldridge, will walk us through the new web-based tool that shares resources for employers seeking to better leverage veteran talent for registered apprenticeship.
Great, thanks Diana, and hello everyone. As Diana previewed, many of the employers and sponsors that we've spoken with are interested in recruiting veteran talent for their registered apprenticeship programs, but either don't know where to start or unsure about how to navigate the many useful resources that already exist out there. Information can be scattered or unclear. With this in mind, we set out to create a simple web-based tool that puts much of what sponsors and employers need to know on recruiting veteran apprentices in one place. Essentially, we really want to create an easy button, eliminating barriers that exist to recruiting veteran apprentices and accessing this pool of qualified talent. So I'll share my screen now for a quick preview of our web resource, which went live yesterday and which we encourage you to check out if of interest. So as you can see, we want to keep it simple and concise with helpful links, plain English interpretations, and tips on navigating resources. We included things like a page that presents reasons why veterans and transitioning service members represent a well-qualified pool of talent for apprenticeship programs. We also include, offer some tips on how to find and recruit qualified veterans, going through some major programs and routes. Then we compile some guidance in one place on how to access funding and supports and considerations to keep in mind when navigating these different programs, some of which will be discussed momentarily in the panel. And then we also offer some tips on how to sustain and expand your program, including efforts to earn recognition for demonstrated commitment to recruiting veteran apprentices. So that's the tool in a nutshell. Again, we encourage you to check it out from urban.org. The link will be posted in the chat box as well, if it hasn't already. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Michael Pruitt, who will be introducing our expert panel.
Hi, and good afternoon. My name is Mike Pruitt. I'm an intern here at the Urban Institute, and I'm also an active duty member of the United States Navy. This is actually my second to last day in the service, so issues affecting transitioning service members and veterans is especially near and dear to my heart. Now, my speaker notes here have me presenting some initial framing remarks, but I don't want to take too much time away from the experts that I know y'all all came here to listen to. So let me just, by way of introducing and framing this discussion, say that we're going to begin by talking about some of the skills that veterans can bring to the table. We're then going to talk briefly about some of the program available to support them and some of the resources that you can access. Then we're going to look into a little bit more in depth about some of the challenges that face employers who do want to hire veterans and are struggling to access their resources correctly or start that registered apprenticeship program, and some of the strategies that y'all can use in order to overcome those. So with no further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panelists. First, we have Janice Fisher. She is bringing years of work with the Veterans Affairs Office of Benefits Administration. She is currently the Chief of Agreements of Federal Programs and has a long history of experience in this field. She currently oversees the veteran state approving agencies. So in some ways, she touches just about every part of the process through which an employer would receive their benefits through the VA, or an employee would receive their benefits through the VA. Next, we have Courtney Jackson. She is a veteran herself and currently works as the CEO and founder of Paragon Cyber Solutions, which is a cybersecurity firm that does penetration testing, risk assessments, all what have you. Additionally, they are about to be the crown champions of the Tampa Bay tech startup scene. So look for new news on that. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Meg O'Grady. She is with the Department of Labor, where she's currently the National Veterans Employment Manager for Employment Training Services, or VETS. She has previously had a impressive career in the private sector and has bounced back and forth between public and private, with the main key touchstone throughout her career being that she has always been working to provide good pathways to veterans and veteran spouses who are trying to enter into industry. She is also herself an alumna of the United States Military Academy at West Point, a proud Black Knight, but we will try not to hold that against her. So to kick things off, I'd like to begin this conversation looking at the skills that veterans can bring to the floor in registered apprenticeship. And I'd like to begin with Courtney, as both an employer and a veteran yourself. So your company, Paragon Cyber Solutions, works in a really technical field doing network security and risk management. When you look at your own career arc, the experience that you've had, the experience of some of your employees, what are some of the advantages that you see veterans having when they're immersed in these really technical fields such as IT?
Wow. Okay. There are a lot of advantages to veterans working in technical fields. So by nature, veterans have strong attention to detail, which is very important. We have the ability to work well within a team and equally as well independently. We can definitely stand on our own, which is also important. And then there's also that discipline aspect that veterans have. You know, we take great pride in our work. We're familiar with the chain of command and coming in, starting at a certain point and working our way up, just like military rank. And I think a really critical aspect is that long-term commitment. There are a lot of people, especially in the tech field, that accept jobs and they don't stay long for various reasons. But with prior military, we're used to signing up for the long run. Even if you join for an initial enlistment, that's 4 years that you're dedicating to spend your life in the military. And I think that's very important because, as an employer, we want to retain talent and hire people that will, grow and stay with us over time.
I actually want to ask a very brief follow-up on this. Has it been your experience that your own technical background that you might have received while serving in the military, or the technical background of any of your employees. Has that been something you can bring to the table? I also do want to just add for folks listening in, there are ways that you can actually account for the hours that veterans have worked in their previous time toward their apprenticeship. So that's something people might not be aware of. These technical skills do have a through line also.
Absolutely.
Meg, I would like to actually go to you next. So in your current role as the National Employment Manager for vets, and in previous stages of your career, like we talked about, you've worked to connect industry and employers with veterans. When you're trying to make that pitch and sell folks on hiring veterans, what are the main advantages you find yourselves highlighting in those conversations?
As Courtney also covered, veterans really have a broad range, not only of technical skills, but those soft skills as well. When veterans come into the military, when service members come into the military, they start training right away, and consistently throughout their career, regularly, they take part in technical training. Every single occupational skill has some sort of technical training that's available to them throughout their career. And so they're used to learning, they're used to succeeding in learning in a variety of different ways. They also represent America. And so if you're looking for diversity in your workforce and also looking for diversity with a worldview and perspective, a veteran couldn't be a better candidate for you. Not only do they have the technical skills, but the soft skills and attributes as well. So you really, while you may be hiring for some skills, what you're really hiring for is those attributes, that ability to learn. Every single service member is a team member and a teammate from the time that they enter the military. They're a leader from the time that they enter the military. Very few service members do not lead some sort of unit at some time, and most lead some units regularly throughout their career. So that teamwork, the diversity, all of those things really make veterans great candidates. And although a lot of people and employers like to talk about hiring veterans as a thank you and the right thing to do, we know that hiring veterans is a really great factor for a business's bottom line. They really do contribute and they're loyal. And so the amount of investment that you put into that veteran will generally give you a greater output than perhaps their civilian counterparts.
Thank you so much. To transition slightly, I'd like to turn to Janice. Now, we've heard both Meg and Courtney speak about what makes veterans an excellent apprentice or an excellent employee, but I think it's pretty fair to assume that there's at least a few maybe CFOs listening on the call and hiring managers saying, well, yeah, but there's other benefits, right? There's some dollars and cents. So I'd like your help talking about what kind of transitioning, what kind of financial services transitioning service members and veterans might be able to access, and some of the basic steps of how they might go about accessing those, both for their apprentices and for the employers themselves.
Sure. The GI Bill is set up so that veterans who are in apprenticeship programs, they can utilize their benefits if they're starting off at a lesser wage because they're in an apprenticeship program. If they apply to use their GI Bill benefits throughout their apprenticeship program, there's generally a scale of benefits, and it starts off and the steps go down until they finish their apprenticeship program and are at a journeyman wage. So this financial incentive as a monthly basic housing allowance for those that are in post 9/11 GI Bill benefits will assist them in living and expenses throughout their apprenticeship program. So that's an incentive for them to enter into an apprenticeship program. They also will receive books and supply stipend. That's up to $1,000 a month that they can receive to ensure that they can cover some of the costs associated with their apprenticeship program. So that financial assistance that the veteran can utilize is beneficial for them and is an extra incentive. Unfortunately, VA does not have incentives for employers, but I know that Department of Labor can assist more with incentives for employers in hiring veterans, as well as some state benefits. There may be federal benefits through Department of Labor, Federal Department of Labor also that are, they're not in my realm. In terms of employer benefits from VA, that is not something that we can offer, but the benefits for the veterans is what's important for them.
I do want to touch on this briefly just because I know we have a lot of employers who might be in the audience listening. But from my own experience leading sailors at sea, I can tell you if I have a hull technician who I'm preparing for their transition out, and they're looking into a welding apprenticeship, I'm certainly going to advise that they try and find a welding apprenticeship program that's been approved to receive VA benefits, because that just makes them a better option for the apprentice, because they'll receive the benefits you were just talking about. So if you're offering an apprenticeship program, it very much, of course, behooves you as the employer to get registered, because I can tell you none of those hull technicians on the USS Shoup were going to be going to the non-unregistered, unapproved to receive their benefits. So they're just going to outcompete you. So there's still, like, even if the money is not flowing directly to the employer, definitely the benefits are accruing to them. I did want to make sure we highlight that.
Yes.
So we were just talking about the post 9/11 GI Bill, and to a lesser extent, the Montgomery GI Bill. This is one of the largest programs for placing veterans into apprenticeship, but it's far from the only one. Meg, would you be able to talk a little bit more about some of the other programs and services that connect veterans and transitioning service members with employers offering apprenticeships?
Certainly. The Department of Labor is actually just finishing up an apprenticeship pilot program that we piloted at several installations across the United States. And we were matching veterans or transitioning service members from those installations into apprenticeships directly from that installation. And one of the benefits of using the transition services is that service members can really identify where it is that they want to go and what it is that they want to do. Often that's a difficult thing for a service member. They've been doing the same job for, between 4 and 30 years, it could be. And one of the challenges that they often face is, I don't want to do what I've been doing for the last 4 to 30 years, but I'm not sure what is exactly out there. And so with these register apprenticeship programs, there are so many possibilities that folks don't even really think about. We think about traditional apprenticeships as something like in construction or trades, but there are apprenticeships in cybersecurity and biotechnology and healthcare and engineering and all these really exciting new industries that are growing. And so by working with a counselor or someone in transitioning services before that veteran becomes an actual veteran is a really great opportunity. As well, we have programs within DoD that allow these service members to start their transitioning training or education or job 180 days out. I'm thinking of degrees right now, but days out from their transition. And by using that authority, they're actually able to start that real job, real life, civilian life right there as they start. And I think you could probably actually talk to that really well, Michael.
Yes, so as Meg alluded, I'm using that precise program, the SkillBridge program, which is one of the various tools that our web tool that Matt previewed at the beginning will teach you how to properly apply to and get vetted through. But that it's certainly been a huge benefit for me. I'm able to be sitting in front of y'all talking today, wearing a suit instead of my fatigues, which I appreciate. And it's definitely given me a lot of the skills I think I need to be able to pursue my own private and professional career. So extraordinary program, the SkillsBridge program for transitioning veterans. That being said, we've been very much painting a beautiful picture of hiring veterans into apprenticeship programs, and I do believe it's an incredible opportunity, but there's certainly challenges with it, as there are with anything. So we've been talking about what makes veterans great apprentices and all these supports, but the simple fact is, we're having this webinar today in part because veterans are underexploited in this candidate pool for apprentices. There are not as many veterans as we might hope or want entering apprenticeships. Fewer than 1% of veterans who are using their post 9/11 GI Bill benefits are using them for apprenticeships. They're instead going to things like 4-year degrees and even community college certificates. So I'd like to hear from each of y'all what some of your thoughts are about, why aren't there more veterans at apprenticeships? Is it something that employers aren't doing to use these programs? Is there a supply side challenge? Are people not taking the right proactive steps to reach out to veterans directly? Are there insufficient fundings? Is there ways that these programs could be streamlined better? That was like 5 different questions in one. So hot potato, I'm going to turn to Courtney to start with you. As someone who's actually built a registered apprenticeship program from the ground up, I'm curious about your perspective on this. Like, what were some of the challenges you encountered? What are some of the things you wish you had known during program creation and finding candidates? What are those challenges and how do you feel like you've overcome them during your time?
Okay, I'll dive right into this, Michael. So, well, first, I wasn't even aware of, available resources such as your organization to help build the program. Obviously, specific to my field, cybersecurity, there is a major skills gap. A lot of people or, students, they go and they get these college degrees and they expect to immediately get a job. And, as an employer, employers look for experience. So how do we bridge that gap, right? So I think awareness is a big thing for both employers as well as veterans, not knowing that they have these alternate routes that they can take other than the traditional degree programs. So obviously, events like this help raise awareness for everybody. So I definitely appreciate that. Um, in terms of the program itself, I mean, our program is going great. Your team helped us develop the outline for it, and everyone that's in the program, they're learning a lot. They're very happy about it. It is very long, it's 2,000 hours, so it's not meant to be like a quick fix or something you just kind of dive into. So that goes back to, the wanting people that are in it for the long term and dedicated. The only thing I could think of that I would have liked to have known initially was about your organization to help me streamline the process. It probably would have saved me a couple months of research. Other than that, though, I mean, the program feedback we've been getting has been great. And I would just say to anyone building a program to make sure that, it's a nice mixture and heavy on the hands-on training, because that's what it's really all about, on-job training. We don't want to have these apprenticeship programs and then they're spending half of their hours in a classroom. I mean, they can do that in college. There's still some instruction involved, but again, I just think there should be a heavy emphasis on the hands-on aspect of it.
Thank you so much. Meg, I'd like to turn to you. What are some of the challenges that you're hearing from employers, the hurdles that they're encountering, and maybe some of the ways that you've helped them work through those challenges?
Well, as someone who spends about 90% of my time doing strategic outreach, communication, and partnerships, I think apprenticeships are the best kept secret that we would like not to be the best kept secret. It's really, I think there's a lot of folks, as Courtney said, who didn't even know that, this is something that's available. And it's really such a win-win situation for folks who not only are getting their skills-based training and certification, as well as their job and their benefits, but for the employers to be able to bring in that talent, test that talent. It costs a whole lot of money for employers to develop this pipeline of talent. And this is a wonderful way to do it while also indoctrinating these folks into their specific culture. So I think part of our issue is the messaging around apprenticeships and the perception of apprenticeships as very traditional and trades-based. So having Courtney here today, having folks here to talk a little bit more about sort of those new collar jobs and that opportunity to train is a really important piece. I think also to Courtney's point, she's setting me up for all these great points, but we have a very long and revered tradition of higher education in this country. And so what we have done at Department of Labor is partner with community colleges and academic institutions in order to help them put together apprenticeship programs and centers under different grants. And so we're able to kind of access the place where we think people want to go for their training and then start to learn about this program where I don't have to go to this institution just to get a degree. I can actually partner with an academic institution and an employer to get this skills-based training. And I also receive certification. So I think from the standpoint of messaging, it's the traditional piece where I think people think if it is an apprenticeship, it must be very traditional and trade-based. The other piece is just really getting the word out to employers that it's a win-win situation and it's worth the small investment to work with an organization like the Urban Institute to set those up, because you'll really get some benefit. In fact, I think 94% of all apprentices actually stay with their employer post-apprenticeship. And that's a great thing. We're always looking for employer loyalty.
Definitely. I'd like to round out this this set by asking Janice. So what are some of your thoughts on why we might not be seeing more veterans going on to become apprentices? Is there something that you could add to this?
Besides what you've had, you discussed about, and I think Meg discussed also about higher education, and some of the veterans may have already utilized their benefits to go to school. They may not have entitlement left. They might have used it all. So for them to seek out an apprenticeship for financial purposes may not be the way they want to go. But if both employers and veterans have an understanding of what registration means, what finishing a registered apprenticeship could mean for them and that certification, I think that's important on both ends for the employers to have the understanding of what them having a registered apprenticeship program will mean for them and for those that are entering it, not only veterans, but whoever enters it. And also for the veterans to understand that, to be able to enter it, even if they don't have entitlement, that particular type of program and the training that it allows will be beneficial for them. It also may be, some of it may be apprenticeships on terms of VA benefits, is that there is a process for VA for veterans, for employers to be able to become approved. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but in terms of the veterans themselves, VA is still learning. We're still learning about outcomes. We work closely with DOL in terms of trying to ensure that there is outreach. Everyone knows that apprenticeship is the buzzword now. I mean, it's all out there, it's everywhere. So I'm hoping that more employers will have an understanding of what apprenticeship means, what it can do for them if they have a program they feel might fit in. And then I think more veterans will also be aware of the services and what's available to them as time goes on also.
Yeah, of course. Janice, I'd like to stay with you for a moment. So in your current role with the Veterans Benefits Administration, you oversee agreements and compliance, and you're probably a lot more familiar than everyone here with the nitty gritty of how this accessing the benefits process actually works. So from your experience, what are some of the standard practices that employers can use, both to speed up their initial approval and to ensure that their veteran apprentice benefits are actually dispersed on time each month? I know this can be a kind of complex process that people have to go through to actually validate and vet their hours recurring every month to make sure those that stream of funds continues. Could you talk to that briefly? Sure.
Actually, the process for a registered apprenticeship employer or sponsor has been streamlined. We worked closely with DOL to make certain. We worked with our state approving agencies. The state approving agencies are those that VA signs an agreement with to do the work of program approval. A veteran cannot receive their benefits unless a program has been approved, and that's apprenticeship programs also. So, but the work is a little bit streamlined. We require a one-page application from an employer or sponsor, and if it's a registered program, their standards are sent to our state approving agencies. We have an agreement with 53 of them across the country. So therefore, the sponsor is simply contacting that state approving agency, forwarding a one-page application and the standards to request approval of their registered apprenticeship program. Following that, though, there are some certifications. The employer certifies the full time that the veteran is in the program, if it's 1 or 2 or 3 years. And then monthly, there's also a certification that the employer does to tell VA how many hours of training that veteran has had each month. It's an electronic process. It's simple and easy also, but there is some time involved in ensuring that the veteran does receive their benefits once the approval is granted by the state approving agency.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we've been talking here a lot about ways to kind of streamline and smooth that process for veterans who want to access their benefits, and also for employers who want to help them through that process. However, there's also an additional separate piece of the issues facing service members who are, like myself, about to separate, or maybe they just have separated, and they don't yet realize how their skills translate into the marketplace. Even people who have highly specialized technical experience in a new apprenticeship, or people who may have even already completed an apprenticeship through something like the US MAT program, which allows them to complete an apprenticeship using their time in service. They might not know how to go about advertising these skills and how to connect with their employer. So I'd like to first turn to Meg. What are some of the things that you know of that employers can do to kind of help close this information gap between the employer and the transitioning service member, to let them know that they do have these skills and they are looking for them?
That's a great question. And that's pretty much what I spend the 90% of my, my time doing with strategic outreach. So what we do at Department of Labor is we connect employers and non-government organizations such as the Urban Institute or industry associations who are actively promoting apprenticeships to employers. And so we have 6 regional veteran employment coordinators who are out in Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, San Francisco, and Dallas, and Philadelphia. And those regional veteran employment coordinators are able to connect the dots on the regional level, not only with our DOL resources on the ground, our America's Job Centers and those types of things, but also to the state workforce agencies. So I would encourage employers who are looking for veterans to go to veterans.gov, and they can send in an email with their requirements, those types of jobs that they have, and one of our regional employment coordinators will reach out to them and meet with them, particularly around the different resources that are available. Because although there are national resources such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Hiring Our Heroes program, and there's several other veteran service organizations such as the Disabled American Veterans that have jobs programs, there are also lots and lots of community-based and regional-based organizations. So I would encourage both employers and veterans to reach out to those type of community organizations. But for employers, please specifically reach out to us at veterans.gov, and we can give you a variety of resources to connect with.
Hey, thank you. That was a great answer. So we're maybe a little ahead of schedule, but we have a lot of really great questions in the Q&A section. I've been glancing over at the ongoing document of those, and they're top notch. So I want to save as much time as possible for that. So before we move on to question and answers, I'd like to offer each of you the opportunity to give some closing thoughts on veterans and apprenticeships, and anything that you think employers might find valuable. Courtney, I'd like to start with you.
Thank you, Michael. I would just say if there are any employers on here considering it, I would say definitely do it, and work with organizations such as Urban Institute, as well as the VA, Department of Labor. For me personally, especially as a startup, it's pretty difficult to find and retain talent, and you want to make sure that you work with people that have the end in mind and are long term, as well as veterans. I'm a veteran myself, as Michael mentioned, so I definitely advocate for veterans. But I would say definitely look into the resources and the new website that's available in the web-based tool, as well as apprentices. You want to get that hands-on experience. I have a master's in cyber, I'll tell you, and even with that, I still have the experience and certifications. Like getting into cyber, I think is important to kind of check as many boxes as possible. So any opportunities that you have that you can get hands-on experience, such as with apprenticeship programs, I would say to definitely look more into it.
Thank you so much. Meg?
Thank you. I would say that for employers who have apprenticeships and have had success at skills-based training, as Courtney has, please spread the word. Go to industry associations, at your industry conferences, tell people about apprenticeships and why they're so important and what a great investment they are. I would say to other folks who are interested in getting into apprenticeships, I've been through the web-based tool, and you guys have every single link that anyone would need to get started and get all the information they need. So some of those links are apprenticeship.gov. That's a great place to start for both veterans and employers. For employers, please visit us at veterans.gov. We would love to help you with those resources. And then for service members who are transitioning, please take advantage of all of the transition assistance program resources that are available to you. And at different installations, there are also additional resources through universities and corporations like Microsoft. So really look into that. Take the time for yourself to really start your transition right, so that as you go through the rest of your second career and you're serving again, you have a good head start.
Awesome. Janice, do you have anything to add?
I do. I mentioned about the state approving agencies. So if there are employers on the line, I did want to mention that you can get additional information from your state approving agency. The way to find them is, I imagine you have them on your site, but it's under the National Association of State Approving Agencies. You'll find them on the web and the contacts will be there for each state. The other thing I wanted to mention is if there are any veterans on the call that believe they're already in an apprenticeship program that may not yet be approved, you should still apply to use your benefits. If you apply at va.gov and you put down your program name and your employer, um, the state approving agencies will reach out to your employer and encourage program approval. So if you believe you're in a program that meets the standards of an apprenticeship, you could also do that. And even if you are already in a program, you should still apply. It's important to turn in your application and indicate what program you're in and where it's located. Starts the process for your benefits.
Thank you. That is awesome advice about having the veterans themselves knock on the door of the VA. I know that's something veterans are always willing to be proactive on, making sure that their benefits are available to them. So I'm sure folks on this call will definitely take that to action if that applies to them. All right, so I'd like to go and move into question and answer. We have a really great one to start it off with. So we hear a lot, especially on this call, about how veterans make excellent apprentices and why you should hire veterans. But this question asker wants to flip that and ask how organizations can support veterans through the apprenticeship process, help them access mentors, and build a culture in the organization that promotes diversity and representation. Essentially, hey, we know what veterans can do for you, but what can you do for veterans? I think the person who's probably best equipped to answer this is going to be Courtney, as the person who has built a great veteran culture at her organization that people want to work for. So please go ahead.
How'd I guess that would come to me, Michael? So in terms of building the culture for it, I mean, as a CEO and a veteran, obviously I consider all applicants, but I do care a lot about supporting veterans. I think for, any new person that's starting, especially a veteran, they should have a mentor within the company, someone, ideally another veteran, that's been through the process, that's transitioned, that can help them along the way and answer any questions that they have. The way our apprenticeship program is set up, we do have our standards, our workforce standards, but then just internally in terms of culture, I'm very veteran driven. So every apprentice is matched with a veteran that they can talk to about their specific questions and challenges they have for the transition. So that is something that I would recommend that any employer do if they were to move forward with this program.
Awesome. Now I know you have maybe the most personal experience building these cultures, but I imagine Meg speaks a lot with people who are trying to do this and gives them advice. Meg, do you have anything that you might add to how employers can build a better culture that's more supportive of veteran candidates?
Yes, actually, you're giving me such an awesome opportunity to really promote my team, who are the regional veteran employment coordinators. They actually do work with and partner with employers to move them through from, I want to hire a veteran, to, oh my gosh, I want to be recognized for hiring veterans, and I just received the Hire Vets Medallion. Now I'm, nationally recognized. So for an example, we have a company in Dallas where our Dallas regional employment managers helped a company start a veteran resource group, worked with the CEO to come up with messaging. And that's one of the really important things. And I think that Courtney exemplifies this, is that the CEO, the leadership really have to walk the walk on this. It won't work in your culture unless you have leadership at the very top levels talking about why it's important. But then kind of going through getting that veteran resource group together, understanding what the laws are, understanding what the advantages are, and then taking them all the way through to where this company now has 2 apprenticeships and just applied for their Hire Vets Medallion. So we're willing to work with those folks. What we do is connect them with those resources, and we also can connect them with other employers who have been very successful in building veteran employment and veteran apprenticeship programs. So I think that's also, for the employer to be able to have an employer mentor and really look at what's worked for them and for their culture is important as well. So please reach out to our folks at veterans.gov.
Thank you. Great advice. Everyone listening at home, write down, contact your regional veterans employment coordinator. Awesome. Thank you. So this next question, I think I'm actually going to stay with you, Meg. So this question asker is curious what the completion rates for veteran apprenticeships compare with in other categories, as in how many people who start these apprenticeships are actually completing them. Now, I don't have data for this on hand, at least, and I'm not certain that you do either. But maybe if we could talk to the common barriers that veterans do face when they're trying to complete their apprenticeship, and things that might be obstacles that they encounter that employers should have on their radar.
So I would say we have our lead for credentialing, licensing, and apprenticeships, Carolyn Rennick, is really our expert. And so I can get some data points from her. I don't want to say the wrong data. I have some in my head, but I also had COVID. So I have a little bit of brain fog as well sometimes from that. So we can get those data points. I would say that veterans coming from transitioning service members and veterans coming from the military into a corporate or other type of employment culture is a real culture shock a lot of times. And so maybe helping those veterans orient and build some cultural competency, not only just around your company culture or organizational culture, but around working in the private sector or even working in the government. Many times they come from a very structured, regimented workplace. They tend to work lots more hours than their civilian counterparts. And so sometimes it's really difficult for them to kind of just adjust to what it is that I'm doing here and how come I'm not moving faster. I would say that most transitioning service members and veterans are very achievement oriented. They're very objective oriented. So if you can provide not only the objective for what they're doing right now, but the pathway and where it goes, they're very used to that. And you'll find that, I think you'll find that they'll be very eager to see what happens when I complete the next step and the next step. So some of that cultural competency, I think, is often a challenge for veterans. But as you hear veterans talk about transitioning, that's one of the biggest challenges that we find.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do want to quickly this isn't even a question, but it's a comment, and it's very helpful. This attendee says a lot of veterans have essential skills of leadership, communication, problem solving, teamwork. And they want to make sure that we also know that employers of qualified veterans can access work opportunity tax credits and training through WIOA. So good to know. Thank you, question asker. We stand. Appreciate it. I have another actual somewhat technical question here, and this is for Janice, and I believe I know the answer, but if you could talk a little bit more in depth. This question asker wants to know if GI benefits can be used to pay for the related technical instruction of an apprenticeship. Related technical instruction, for the folks who are less familiar with apprenticeships, this is the formal, normally in a community college setting kind of instruction that goes along. So is this something that the Veterans Administration or the Veterans Affairs can help employers with? And if so, are there other systems that they might be able to access instead?
So I can say that generally, no. Generally, the related training is built into the apprenticeship program, and veterans cannot utilize both apprenticeship benefits and tuition and fee benefits at the same time. The only option I can think of when it does occur sometimes is possibly a truck driving program, and the truck driving school might be prior to the apprenticeship program, and it's a 30-day program, and that truck driving school itself is approved separately as a standalone non-college degree program with a certification received at the conclusion. So that way that veteran could receive their truck driving certification, start their apprenticeship program for 1 year. But generally, if there's related training mixed in throughout a 4-year apprenticeship at a community college, that is not something that can be covered. The veteran would have to cover that from their own basic allowance for housing each month that they receive during their apprenticeship. So I guess it depends, but tuition and fee payments are not paid directly to employers if there's tuition charges that the employer is charging to the veteran. And no, we can't pay both benefits at the same time.
I
Does that help?
It does. Thank you so much. I do know that there are other kind of systems that are in place to kind of help employers subsidize and offset some of the costs for related technical instruction. There's often state benefits, there's benefits available through the DOL, and there's programs like ourselves who might be able to help people offset those costs. This is drifting a little bit far from your wheelhouse, but I was wondering, Meg, could you touch on some of those or highlight any that folks might want to be aware of?
Still on mute. Sorry about that. Apologies. Yes. So can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So we were talking about related technical instruction. We were touching on the fact that GI Bill benefits through the VA aren't actually the best option for related technical instruction, but there are other systems that can be accessed through things like DOL, state incentives, and even through intermediaries. And I recognize that while this is a little far from your wheelhouse, if you would be willing to just talk about a few systems that you're aware of. And also, Courtney, if there's anything that you've used that you'd like to add in here, we'd appreciate that.
Yes, I would. I'd really like to highlight the state workforce agencies and the state workforce resources that are available. We work hand in hand very, very closely with the different state workforce agencies, and often each state has different resources that are available around those apprenticeships. So there are federal apprenticeships and there are state apprenticeships. And in fact, I think on your tool, you guys have some good links to go to some of the maps that show those things, as well as those links to the apprenticeship directors for each state. So I would encourage folks to reach out to those offices to find out what local resources might be available, and they do differ from state to state. So if you have multiple locations, you may find that you have advantages in one state or another, and that may help you to decide where you're going to pilot your first apprenticeship program.
Awesome. So I actually have two questions here about SkillBridge. And I would rather not speak to them myself, so I might ask for a little bit of help, Meg, with these. So this first question asker says, what advice can you give to base commands to understand the importance of apprenticeship programs and of DoD SkillBridge? I've found that the approval process at the command level can be somewhat challenging when a service member is interested in joining an apprenticeship program or DoD SkillBridge prior to their end of service. I would just echo this. It is a challenging process. It required quite a lot of legwork on my own part. So what are some advice you could give to those commands, the people who actually on the military side have to give their blessing before they give away their sailor or their soldier or their Marine or airman?
So I would say exactly what you just said, which is that if I were someone who wanted to participate in the SkillBridge program, you do have to do a lot of legwork because commanders change out very often. We know that in the military. And often if you want to do something, there is a bureaucratic process. The more educated you are, the better. So find out all that you can about the SkillBridge program. Find someone who on your installation who's already doing that SkillBridge program and talk to them about how they were able to do it. I do know we work very closely on a whole of government effort with transition programs. So we are working closely with the DoD on the SkillBridge program as well as the VA. And one of the things that we are trying to do right now is really get the word out on SkillBridge. And in fact, we just had a town hall meeting about the SkillBridge program in Camp Pendleton, and it was very successful. So we're using that type of town hall atmosphere to bring in leadership in different installations and have our DoD and VA and DOL counterparts talk about what it is that SkillBridge does. It is a difficult thing also because it is up to that local command. So while there is a policy and you can educate yourself on it, it does end up being up to the local command. So what we're trying to do is really show across the board what types of successes there are. So again, if you're a transitioning service member who wants to participate in SkillBridge, find someone who's had some real success on that installation and bring that story in as proof of concept of why it's important and how it can work.
Of course. And, you know, in addition to the advice that you give for people working with base commanders and their installation commanders, I would just say for any shipmates listening who are currently hoping to be able to take advantage of SkillBridge. To go off what Meg said, you very much want to work with the previous work that's already been done. So scan those computer share drives, try and find the previous packages, try and find a template of a memorandum of understanding that's been used. That's 100% the way to go. I would like to actually continue this conversation about SkillBridge with a much more technical question. And that is, you have VA benefits, GI Bill benefits through the VA that allow you to take advantage and get a monthly housing allowance for an apprenticeship. And then you also have SkillBridge, which allows you to complete an apprenticeship while receiving your active duty pay. Is it possible for employers to combine these two for a single apprentice? And if so, what does that look like?
Janice, I would have to defer to you on this one. I just from my own experience at DoD, I think it would be a difficult thing to do in order to get funding from both agencies at the same time, but I guess it could carry over. So Janice, I'll push it over to you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer that one. I am more a subject matter expert in the approval piece, not so much the benefit piece. There's other teams within my division that handle and who's entitled, and so in terms of talking about who's entitled for apprenticeship programs, that's a little bit tougher for me in terms of understanding what the SkillBridge is versus normal regular GI Bill benefits. So not something I can do. Possibly our website would provide more information, Michael. I'm not sure.
So,
and I can definitely go back and find some information about that.
Of course, by way of just making sure we're not leaving this question asker with nothing, I would say you can't access the GI Bill benefit while you're still active duty, which means you cannot use them at the same time. If it is possible to use both benefits for a single apprentice, they would have to be sequentially. So starting your GI Bill benefits after you've already completed a SkillBridge time, which also means they would already have completed a lot of their apprenticeship. So up to 6 months of their apprenticeship would already be behind them. So they wouldn't be using it for as long, but there might be a way that you could transition from one benefit package onto the other. But that is going to be, as our panel of experts all agree, a little squirrely. I would like to continue to talk a little bit about things in science and technology and engineering. So when we look at these STEM occupations, veterans have a really high proportion of activity in this marketplace, much more so than non-veterans. Is the Department of Labor or vets doing any kind of programming to specifically communicate this to employers who want to hire veterans specifically into tech? I'd like to start this with Meg, of course, working with vets and DOL, but I'm curious if Courtney has any opinions on this also.
Yes, I actually saw my friend Evan who put in the question. So nice to see him, worked with him when he was at Verizon. Yes, there's a great emphasis on STEM right now, particular to veterans as well as to women veterans in STEM. And so we are working with a variety of organizations. Several have grants from the Department of Labor, Department of Defense, or the National Science Foundation on how can we recruit and recruit more veterans and military spouses into STEM programs and employment, but also how can we get the word out about STEM careers in general, because it's such a growing field and they're changing so often. And so I know George Washington University is working on a convening of experts to talk about STEM, particular for women veterans. I just participated in an interagency working group, the report to come out later this year, with folks from all over the government. Every agency was represented in some way, where we came up with a strategic plan as to how we can recruit more veterans and military spouses into STEM. The other thing to do is really work with the services to figure out what are the STEM occupations that are in the services where those skills can translate, maybe not directly, but somehow that aptitude can help translate into the jobs that you have as an employer. So STEM is very much at the forefront of folks' minds right now, and figuring out how we can get more people in. And as an employer, I would say, look out there and participate in as many of these conferences as possible. We need your voice to understand what the need is and then to help get that supply together.
Awesome, thank you so much. I would actually like to turn to Courtney next. In addition to if you had any further thoughts on that previous question, folks would like to know in the chat a bit about your own process and experience going through to become approved, both getting approved to be a registered apprenticeship program, and also getting approved through your state approving agency. Is there like a list that we should be going through? Is there a specific process other than, of course, partnering with experts that you found important to go through that?
So I would definitely say the latter. Your company, you were the experts for me. So when I reached out, you had the process already aligned. I mean, I did work very closely with several members of your teams. I did have to establish the workforce standards for my specific program. In addition to the general standards, I also had to outline the instruction that was going to be involved with it. So there's definitely some, legwork and some effort required up front. But your team actually made the submissions for me to the state. And then, whenever there were any questions, they came back and we had several meetings. So really paperwork, meetings, coordination, and, eventually the approval. And then I did have to get the approval through the Department of Labor initially. And then after that, I was able to get the approval through the VA. And that process was just as Janice mentioned earlier, it was really streamlined, very electronic, and they just pretty much used the standards that I had approved from the state. So that made it a lot easier.
Awesome. Also, this question asker does specifically ask if there's a list of state approving agencies through the US that could be shared. If you do go to the tool that we highlighted at the beginning, you should be able to find that. That's also on the VETS page, I believe. There's several places that'll link you into a very helpful directory of the list of approving agencies. Let me look. We probably only have time for one more question. We're getting close to wrapping time, so I'm trying to find a real good, juicy example of a last great question. So one person in the webinar asks, I'm in Michigan. Is there any way that we could recruit from the military base locations for our skilled trade apprenticeship programs? We would also like to do skilled trade apprenticeship career fair. So I guess I'll turn that one to you, Meg. For people who want to be able to work directly with the military bases and possibly do career fair opportunities, are there good systems for that?
Yes, there are. There are several nonprofit organizations who run career fairs at no cost to employers. One of them is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Hiring Our Heroes organization. But again, I know I sound like a broken record, but you can reach out to my regional veteran employment coordinator, Betty Hart, who's in Chicago and has that region for Michigan, and she can connect you with a variety of resources. There are always career fairs going on. Even with COVID, they've been able to do some really successful virtual career fairs. We also want to connect you with their local veteran employment representative and the America's Job Center so that you can post those jobs or find the right resources to find those folks on the installation. So please reach out to us at veterans.gov.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much. I do want to just say, the document that we're compiling all the questions in is quite long. I'm looking at them and they're all very thoughtful. So we're not going to leave y'all hanging. If you are able to provide us an email, we would love to get to these questions after the fact to make sure that we get you the best possible information so that you have all that information going forward and you're properly equipped. I also want to take this opportunity to thank all our panelists for their time today. We really appreciate the expertise we were able to bring to this conversation, and we hope that we've been able to really significantly help folks in the audience who might be wanting to hire veterans and need to have that process explained to them further, or who might want to know more about what kind of services they can access. I would also remind folks that this will be available shortly online for folks who want to share this recording. Feel free to share this with your networks. I would also encourage people to look at the Veterans Apprenticeship tool that we previewed at the beginning, especially if you're an employer who already has a registered apprenticeship. This is very much targeted to you to make sure that you're able to easily access all the required tools and information that you need. That about wraps it up. I appreciate everyone who has joined us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.